strange to see you like this.
Hello, book lovers. Welcome. We are live, and I'm so happy to be with you. My name is Joe Moldover, and welcome to the 98th episode of Authors Love Bookstores from a Mighty Blaze. Every week, my friend and partner Kimberly Hensel-Lawrence and I travel across North America and as far as the UK to support independent booksellers and the authors and readers who love them. And this week, we are finally making it to the great state of West Virginia. And we are with author Rajia Hassib. Rajia, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. For the audience, Rajia is the author of In the Language of Miracles and A Pure Heart. The New York Times calls her writing assured and beautifully crafted. And NPR called A Pure Heart, seen here, a lovely novel about the bonds of family and how religion can bring people together, as well as tear them apart. Rajia was born and raised in Alexandria, Egypt, before moving to the US at age 23. She holds a graduate degree in English and lives in Charleston, West Virginia, with her family. And also coming to us from Charleston, Dan Carlisle from Taylor Books. Dan, thanks for being here.
Hi. Yeah, thank you.
Total
Thanks for having
pleasure.
me.
Rajia, I'm going to go to you first. So we're with Taylor Books because you nominated them as your favorite and beloved independent bookseller. For those of us who have not had the privilege of getting to Charleston, tell us why. What's so great about Taylor Books?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. The place is just gorgeous, and it is a gem, and like really an excellent addition to our community. So you have to imagine this, okay? It's not just the place and the books and the surfaces, it's the whole atmosphere. So imagine the place. The store is in kind of like 3 rectangular rooms side by side. So you enter in the middle one, and it's the gorgeous independent bookstore of your dreams, right? It's an old building. You have the old wood worn out floors, brick walls, and just an incredible selection of books, complete with a used book section all the way at the end. So, and the beautiful displays and the cards and the staff, of course, was always very helpful and very knowledgeable. And then to the right-hand side, there's another rectangle with the rest of the stores, like half of that is books, and the other half is a beautiful cafe. So you can sit down and, buy the book, get your coffee, sit down there. And the cafe also hosts live music shows on Fridays and Saturdays, okay? On the other side, that's where Dan is sitting now, is the gallery, right? So the gallery also has more books first, and then a section where they display and sell local art. It's also a part where that can be converted for readings, and that's where I have my book launches as well. So this whole beautiful space, you can have attend poetry readings, fiction readings, and just be surrounded by all this local artwork. So the bookstore itself, apart from just being a gorgeous independent bookstore, which would have been enough, right, to have all the book selections and the helpful staff and so on, and the little book recommendations, the cards, with the book recommendations, staff favorites, and all of that. It's almost like a little cultural center. You can take pottery making lessons there. They have a cinema attached to them where they can show international films and so on. They have movie screenings. And they have the music, they have the cafe. It's just a whole experience. So basically, every time I walk there, I'm just happier than it makes you happy. If you love books, if you love art, it's just a place that makes you happy.
Oh my gosh, you've sold me. All right, I'm on the next plane. It sounds so great. Dan, I'm going to come to you in a minute and ask you a little bit about it. But first, for our online audience, both people who are with us now live, thank you for being here, and people who are watching in future time. 2 things. First, if you're live, drop questions and comments in the chat. I'm happy to pass questions on to Rajia or Dan about writing, about book selling, about the publishing world. So drop your questions and comments. Also, our show exists to support independent booksellers, and we are supporting Taylor Books. Taylor has a bookshop.org stall, which we are linking to, and you can go there to grab some books, including this gem, which is available, as well as Raja's debut in the Language of Miracles, both critically acclaimed. So do it. Dan, let me come to you. So, I mean, the store just sounds completely amazing. I've been like on the website, and Raja just makes it sound like paradise. I have to think that for a space like that, it's really dependent on people being physically in the store, on live events, live music, book events, people browsing, people coming in for classes. What have the last 2 years, 2+ years, been like for your store, and how are you making it work?
Let's see, what year are we in? 2022. So 2020, 2 years ago, I guess we were just reopening right about now. 2 years ago, we would have reopened after being closed for 3 months. So that was obviously pretty tough. And then it was a slow start, figuring out just like, I mean, that was tough. You lose the staff that I had, we had worked together for so long, and people were making a certain amount of money and contributing a certain amount of work, and like, you don't know, then the future just becomes completely unpredictable. So lost all that momentum. I mean, we were doing so much. I felt like we were just having programming like 3-4 times a week as far as author events and open mic, and like, just to think about it now, what we were doing, I don't think we're yet to that level, but we're getting there. And so it was a slow start getting reopened, and then 2021 was like kind of the biggest year that we'd ever had, I think, as far as reopening, and people were coming out, and that was really exciting. But also we were still not doing the live events and not doing as much kind of programming. And yeah, so we're just trying actually still to get back to that like 2019 level, I would say, although business is good. The programming part of it, and like just kind of like having all those gears working together, we've been trying to build that back up.
Give us a taste of the book community in Charleston. I mean, what kind of books are popular? What is the audience looking for? What are the genres that you're really selling? I mean, what's the book culture there?
Well, Raja, yeah, the book culture here is, I mean, fiction, not novels, are still the like #1 genre category of sales. Regional books are very popular. I think that, we're the capital city of West Virginia. There's a lot of folks that come here, I think, to visit the natural beauty and stuff, and they find themselves in town. So we get a lot of visitors who find us. I just don't, as far as like the literary community, there's some writers groups, there's a lot of book groups, so there's plenty of readers, but we're a small city. I mean, it's only 50,000 people here, I think, about. So
book groups you mentioned, a lot of the book clubs that I've visited seem to be into what you'd expect book clubs to like the novels, the family-oriented novels, and so on. So I don't know if you see that like reflected in what people are interested in, but I see that a lot in the various multiple book clubs I've visited here.
Raj, I would love to come to you and ask you a little bit more about your work. So I mentioned at the top of the show that your in the Language of Miracles and the Pure Heart have just been acclaimed in sort of these lovely terms by the New York Times and by The Guardian and by NPR, and just it's for any writer sort of Googling your work, who will sort of induce some writerly envy. But for listeners who are not familiar, and especially with A Pure Heart from 2019, tell us a little about this work. Tell us a little about this story. I mean, I found it to be sort of a lovely, really touching, in many ways heartbreaking story that I love family drama, and this is a story about family. Tell us a little bit about it. Tell readers about it who might not know about it.
A Pure Heart is about two sisters mainly. One is an Egyptian American Egyptologist who lives in New York City. She's married to an American journalist, and the other one is a sister who is more religious, more conservative, and she stayed in Egypt. And the novel starts when the sister in Egypt gets killed in a terrorist attack. So we find this out from the page 1. And the Egyptian American sister, the archaeologist, goes back to Egypt to visit her parents. And she goes through her sister's things and decides to take them back with her to the US and treat them as artifacts, in a way, as keys to finding out what happened to her sister and how she ended up on the site of that suicide bombing, because she has reason to believe that it wasn't a coincidence and that her own husband, the American journalist, may somehow be involved. So the novel then follows Rose, the Egyptologist's sister, as she unpacks the last 5 or 6 years of her sister's life and tries to understand what happened to her, and in the meantime tries to negotiate her own relationship with her husband and her own future. So it's kind of like it's a family drama. It's about sisters. It has a lot of ancient Egyptian mythology weaved in, which I just love because I happened to research it for her and it worked out beautifully for the novel. So so I hope readers kind of enjoy it when they read it.
Yeah, no, I mean, any reader will. I mean, and Rajia, your first, in the Language of Miracles, also it hinged on a murder-suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, as you said, A Pure Heart, hinged on a suicide bombing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say something about the role of violence in your work? I mean, there's sort of these like beautifully sort of wrought novels that are very sensitive. They're very literary. They're delving into family relationships. They're looking at race and racism in the United States, and but they are hinging on these episodes of sort of shocking violence. And I wonder if you'd say something about that.
Sure. I think it's for both novels. I was trying to explore themes of violence because, as an Egyptian American, as a Muslim American, this is the situation I found myself in post 9/11. Right, I came to the U.S. before 9/11, and then after that, everything changed for Muslim Americans, in part because, in one way or another, we were seen as being associated with acts of violence who did tremendous harm to the communities. So it's something that I've always wanted to explore, that I needed to explore in fiction, partly because I wanted to understand how that happens, and I delve deeper into that in The Pure Heart, because there are actual sections, chapters that are from the terrorists' points of view. So I tackled that more directly there than I did in the Language of Miracles, but partly because I also wanted to explore how it feels like to bear that weight as a Muslim American, to be aware of the fact that we are often seen as associated with terrorism in a way. So I kind of use that. It ends up being just like an undertone or a plot thing, but I always end up writing more about families and relationships because this is what I'm interested in, and this is what I can discern more, I think. So it's not like the whole novel is about that, but it has been a theme that I was curious to explore based on my own backgrounds.
Yeah, and it's it's a difficult topic, and Dan, it's something I've kind of been thinking about today. I mean, my debut novel was about the aftermath of a school shooting, and so that's something I've been obviously thinking about a lot. Yesterday and today, and Rajia is dealing with these topics, writing about terrorism after 9/11 and so forth. I mean, is it difficult to I don't want to be crass about it, but like, is it difficult to sell these books that are about these really difficult topics? Is it difficult for books that are about these challenging, painful topics to find a readership, do you think? Are people who come into the store sort of looking for things that are sort of more escapist and that are more, light or whatever? Or do you find that people are coming in and they're looking for sort of really meaty, topical, challenging things like Raja's work? What do you think as a bookseller?
I think that in light of this situation that we find ourselves in this country, and I don't know what it's like to live in a different country, that it's just hard to maintain any hope or optimism. Like, it's just hard to maintain that kind of optimism for book selling, any kind of books, really. It's just like, I don't think it's hard to sell books with difficult subject matter. I think it's hard to just live in the aftermath of this really unspeakable violence, which we can't seem to do anything about. It's gotten worse. I mean, when I remember Columbine as being sort of the first mass school shooting, and nothing happened to make any difference since then. So no, I mean, customers, there's just so many. The customer base is so diverse, and certain people are looking for certain things, and I think they can find what they want in a bookstore.
Yeah.
But it's just hard to just keep experiencing all this and just keep having to live with it. It's really hard for everyone.
It's crushing. I mean, it's crushing. And, Raja, I mean, I think, that, you and I are both writing about these topics and these things that I think just feel, whether we're talking about terrorism or whether we're talking about school shootings, I mean, we're talking about these things that just feel overwhelming. And as Dan says, I can really evoke a feeling of hopelessness. And what is your perspective on that as a writer? I mean, what did it mean to you to write about these things? Was it something that was cathartic for you? Was it something that allowed you to explore things that were difficult to talk about? I mean, I remember in the launch for my book, we did a presentation and we did a Q&A, and my youngest child, who was she was, I guess, 10 at the time, in the Q&A, raised her hand because it had sort of dawned on her for the first time what my book was really about. And she said, "Why did you write about something so sad?" And I said, I said, I think it's writer's job to write about hard things. And this was the hardest thing I could think of. And, I feel sort of the same way about your books, that you're writing about these very hard things and these things that are moving to you. Tell us, as a writer, what does it mean to write about these topics? What does it mean for you?
That's an excellent and somewhat difficult question to answer, because I think part of it is because I totally agree with what Dan said as well, right? It gets so frustrating to be in a position where you feel that we're facing violence again and again, and it seems as if nothing's going to change. And I think after Sandy Hook, kind of when nothing changed then, a lot of people believe that nothing ever will change because it should have changed then. I still hope it does. But yeah, that's just an aside, because I wanted to voice my agreement with Dan's frustration with the situation we find ourselves in. But I agree with you, Joe, that difficult topics have to be addressed. And I think part of it is because for writers, it's a responsibility to address them, but it's also, it's a version of you write what you know, right? But it's not that you write what you know because you have the answers, but it's more like I write what I'm obsessed with, and I write about what preoccupies me and what I need to understand better. Because for me, writing is a process of discovery. So when you said that writing this could have been cathartic, it was to an extent for me, because I don't start writing about something as heavy as terrorism or violence, believing that I know exactly what this is about, and I'm going to write a novel just to reveal the truth to everyone else, because that's not, nobody does that. Nobody knows that. It's more a process of, this is something that really I'm experiencing on a daily basis, the aftermath of which I'm experiencing, something my kids will have to grow up with. And it's therefore something that's very important for me to explore. And I think if you approach a subject matter even if it's that difficult, with a level of personal investment as a writer, then it just happens, or if you're lucky, that you will find readers who will be interested in it as well. So I don't think readers shy away from difficult subjects. I think we all share concerns about specific things. We share curiosity about specific things. And if you're lucky enough to be a writer and you can address this in an authentic or engaged way, in a sincere enough way, then readers will want to read it. It's not, I don't think people in general are afraid to read difficult subjects. It's not all escapism, right? Some of it is more, what is this life about, right? Help me. And if it's, and it could be like a very, very small part of life. It's not the answer to life, but it's something very small. Why do siblings grow up together in the same household and turn out so different? Which extends to, why do I not get along as well with my siblings as I would have liked to, for example. That's not a personal thing. This is an example. So you write things that you're interested in, invested in, you write about them, and hopefully, I never worry about whether it's going to be too hard for readers. I trust readers. I don't think anything is too hard for readers. Someone will be interested in it.
Yeah. Dan, there are a lot of shows out there in which people are interviewing authors, but one of the things that we love is that we love having the booksellers on, and many of the people who watch this show are themselves aspiring writers in some way, and so one of the things we try to do is we try to crack the code. We try to crack the publishing code to the degree that we can. Part of what we're talking about here is connecting with readership, and authors trying to connect with readers. And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Do you, as books are rolling out for you, as books are coming to the store every Tuesday and launching, do you have any more of a clue than we do? Do you know what books are likely to find readers? Do you know what books are going to take off, or is it a surprise to you? And just as a follow up on that. Do you shape it? Do you fall in love with books and help them to take off, or do you just feel like you're surfing the wave along with everybody else?
Well, I mean, I'm in the position to where I am surfing the wave, but if I find something that I love, then we're definitely gonna have it, and I'm gonna, tell anyone that puts their hand on it, oh, that's a great book. But I don't think I have any real foresight into like what's gonna catch on. I'm often surprised, but my reading is very exploratory. I'm kind of all over the place, just like I always was. So I'm not seeking trends really. I mean, when I do book buying, I'm thinking about, I'm part of what I'm thinking about is like as a shopper, like I'm going in, what do I want to see? What would I be interested in? Of course, I've come to know, I've worked here for 12 years, so I know a lot of my clientele, like by name and by what they would like. And there's groups of people that I'm like, oh, so-and-so, and their kind of cadre of people would like this. So I can pick out books that I think are going to do well here, but then also there's stuff that just comes from left field.
Comes out of left field. It just meshes.
Yeah. TikTok apparently now. I guess Colleen Hoover. I haven't read, but like she's apparently, I've not been on TikTok either, but
yeah. Well, we'd probably have to go to my youngest to get TikTok input. I think we're all but
very influential on TikTok.
Yeah. Rajia, do you engage with social media? Do you engage with your readers on social?
I do. I'm not on TikTok though. It seems too complicated for me, but I do. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and whenever someone reaches out, I always respond. I also have a website, and people email me sometimes. So it's always it's a lot of fun to get like an unexpected nudge from a reader, because as a writer, you kind of publish a book and it's out there and you know nothing about it, and it's almost surprising every time that, oh, someone actually has read that and they're reaching out.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it so much. I love it so much. I mean, I have to say, like, I love live music, but I'm the least musical person you're ever going to meet. But the thing that I would just like, the thing I really envy about musicians is that they have their audience like right there, you know, like shouting back at them or whatever. And I think you're right. As writers, it's just so strange. We do these things, we do beautiful work like this, we send it out into the world, and then it's like, who knows what's going on? And it's so wonderful to hear from the audience.
Yes.
Speaking of the audience, we have an audience question I want to share with it's a jump ball for either one of you. But we've been talking about difficult topics. We've been talking about people being ready for challenging topics. Ellen asks, speaking of difficult topics, are you ready to read fiction about the pandemic? You know, it's sort of a challenging thing, I guess, for writers right now, right? I sort of feel like a lot of people are setting their books in 2019, you know, in an effort to not deal. Jump ball for either one of you. What do you think? Are we ready to write about it? Are we ready to read about it? Or is it too soon?
I think we're ready, as long as, you know, if it's good, we're ready.
What do you think, Rajia?
That's an answer. I think I'm ready to read about it. I'm not ready to write about it.
Yeah.
If someone else has the courage and, you know, stamina to write about that, good for them. I will read it.
Yeah.
I think I feel like I must have read something that had that element in it, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Dan, Ellen has another question, which is a follow-up to what we were just talking about the market, about whether there's a book that you can think of that sold far better than you anticipated. If there's a book that came in and you thought, you know, whatever, we'll stock 2 copies, and then it just kind of blew sky high.
Gosh. Well, I mean, I was surprised. What's the one, Delia Owens' book, Crawdads? Man, that thing that has really held on. It's really kept sales going. And then another one that we have had on our bestseller for 3 years, I think, is this book called Ramp Hollow, which is this definitive history of Appalachia. And I mean, that book is just always on the stock replenishment every week. And it's been for years now. So that's a good surprise. What else is always on the stock replenishment? Some of those kids' books, like, gosh, Raina Telgemeier, her graphic novels, they really stick. But I guess that's not so surprising. I don't know.
Yeah. We're, for the viewers, just as a reminder, we're going to link to books in the chat so that you can pick them up, not from a big box or from an online retailer such as you might have heard of, but from Taylor Books, supporting local independent booksellers. So you can pick it up from Taylor through Bookshop, and the links are going to be in the chat. So so use them.
Here's a book that has been, I'm sorry to interrupt you, I just thought of the one. This book that just keeps selling, and I haven't read it, but it's called Flesh, something about flesh. Gosh, now I can't remember the title. Oh my goodness. Tender is the Flesh. No, is that right? Never mind. Keep going.
Kimberly will probably figure it out. Our producer Kimberly will probably figure it out behind the scenes, and she's going to pop it into the chat.
That involves cannibalism, so maybe that's not surprising either. I don't know.
I was thinking it was a romance novel when you said that, but okay, I guess that's another take on flesh being tender.
That would be a brilliant title, though, if it's a
I mean, yeah. Rajia, a couple questions. Question for you. So first of all, this is a question that's always delicate with an author. So if you don't want to take it on, just take a pass on it. What are you working on right now? What can we expect from you?
So this morning I was rewriting the last chapter of the 3rd novel. So we're getting somewhere after 3 years. It's not the final draft, obviously, and but it's a draft. So I do have a draft.
Can you tell us anything about it or not yet?
I can, with the kind of like disclaimer that when I rewrite, everything changes. So what I tell you now may not end up being there at all next year or so. But it's a multi-generational immigration novel, basically about a family from Alexandria, Egypt, that who are an upper class industrialist family with factories, and they get all their money and the factory confiscated by the government in the 60s. So there's a lot of like Egyptian political history there, and they end up immigrating to the US. So the novel starts in the 1930s in Alexandria, moves to the US in the 60s, and extends to about 2011 here, following 3 generations of the family, basically the grandparents and then the daughter and her husband and then the granddaughter. So it's an immigration story. It's mother, daughter, granddaughter story, and I'm still working on it, and it definitely ends before the pandemic because I'm not going to go that far.
Definitely not going to go down that road. Yeah, I hear you. Is there a title we can share, or not yet?
So far, it's called The Alexandrians, and I'm hoping to keep that title. Titles are because it's really, really in kind of set. The first 30 years are in my home city of Alexandria, Egypt. And it has a fascinating history, and it was a very cosmopolitan city, a city that kind of like always taps itself on the back for being better than everyone else, because it's kind of the beacon of culture in Egypt, and we're arrogant, Alexandrians are. So as you can tell, so it's set in that city, and I try to maintain that culture of the cosmopolitan culture of the city, and how that affects the family after they become the others, right, after they immigrate to the US. So so I'm hoping to keep that title. So far it's called The Alexandrians, but titles.
It's a great title.
I like it, right? Thank you.
No, actually, all of your titles are very poetic. Do you come up with the title at the beginning of the process, or do you sort of finish the book and then you say like, oh, this is what this is about?
I don't come up with it at the beginning. It kind of evolves as I'm writing. And I find titles very difficult. The first novel, I had no problem with it. That's the only title I had for it, and it worked. The second novel, I had pages and pages of titles, and I'm I kind of went back and forth on a pure heart, but it ties back to an ancient Egyptian myth about the weighing of the heart ceremony, how like in the ancient Egyptian myth of the afterlife, the heart was weighed against the feather of truth and justice, the goddess Ma'at, and the heart had to be pure and weigh as much as or less than the feather for the person to be granted an eternity with the gods. So, so it ties back to that. So it worked. And for this one, I also had pages and pages of titles. I didn't get to it until maybe I was 2 years into the novel, when you kind of realize, oh, this is what this novel is actually about. It's about home, and it's about our perception of home, and how the place affects us in a way, and how the place sees us affects how we see ourselves. And that kind of that was where the Alexandrians came from. I hope it stays. You never know with titles; they change.
It sounds wonderful. Dan, we're starting to run low on time, so let's sell some books. Yes. I would love to hear about any books at all that you are feeling excited about right now, that you've personally read recently, that you're feeling really strong about. Books that are forthcoming, where you've read The Ark, books that are hot in the store right now, any books that you want to mention. And we're going to be dropping the links into the chat so people can pick them up from Taylor Books.
Okay, great. Well, I like I said, my reading habits are a bit all over the place, and for some reason I picked up a novel which I see behind Rajia, and that's Jonathan Franzen's Freedom. And I just read that. Read that, and it's an old book, of course, and it doesn't need any publicity, but I read it finally, and I loved it so much that I then went and read Crossroads and The Corrections, which I hadn't read either. And I'm just like a total Franzen convert now. I'm gonna anxiously await his next book in the Crossroads trilogy, I guess. So I'm excited about him and about that. And I know it's like controversial. Franzen's controversial, but I really enjoyed that. I wrote down some books here. A book that Rajia came into the store and bought recently, which I was really excited about, and which I've been telling everyone about, is George Saunders' A Swim in the Pond in the Rain.
Oh yeah.
Which came out in paperback not too long ago, and that is a book that will just change the way you read. And if you're a writer, I think it could be very beneficial. And as a reader, I just absolutely found it wonderful. And I love him. I love hearing his interviews. I love his book. And so this book is just like taking a class from George Saunders, which is an absolute delight.
Yeah.
A lot of times people come in and they often do say, I'm just want something light. I'm looking for something light. And I did finally read something that was delightful and light, and that was a book called Scattered All Over the Earth by a Japanese writer, Yoko Tawada, which was published from New Directions not too long ago. And it's just like this quirky, fun story about like this group of linguists traveling around Europe trying to find a native Japanese speaker. And it's just a very like delightfully odd. You want more?
Absolutely. I mean, the audience loves Rex. So anything that's coming into your mind.
Okay. Well, we're online. Okay, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to break in about the about your Franzen kick, because yeah, I mean, it doesn't. It's not a hot take on our part to say Jonathan Franzen's a great writer, and the books are fabulous, and we're putting the links in the chat. But yeah, I mean, he is a fascinating character. I mean, he is a fascinating kind of cultural character, and I was gonna put in a plug for a podcast about the sort of wrestling with his sort of his personality, his writing, his place in the culture, and the podcast is kind of tongue-in-cheek called Mr. Difficult. But it is a serious podcast that is about Franzen's writing, and
multiple episodes about him and his writing.
Multiple episodes. It is multiple episodes of a podcast about Jonathan Franzen. It's by the author, novelist Aaron Summers, who's a wonderful novelist and short story writer. And we'll put the link in the chat. Yeah, we've got it there now, MrDifficult.com. And so we usually recommend books, but I want to do a podcast rec there. But yeah, Dan, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Okay. Having and Being Had by Eula Biss. I love this. She's just like so smart, and reading her is just like the thoughts that you have had crystallized, and I don't know, she's a delight. I'm currently reading Johann Hari's Stolen Focus, which I am really agreeing with that whole idea where it's just like our attention is valuable and it is being, sold, and that's how money is being made, by like stealing our attention. And it's important. I think we're going to look back at this period of time and realize, like, that we have too much technology and too many guns. And I also I read Jenny Odell's How to Do Nothing. I love that book, and books like that. I mean, I'm kind of a bit of a technophobe, I guess.
Yeah, I'll drop another one in there, actually. Just a book, because I agree with you on those works on attention. I think they're great. And another one I want to toss in there with Stolen Focus and is Deep Work by the writer Cal Newport, which is a great book, and I think especially important for writers and for aspiring writers, about how to focus your attention and do meaningful work and not have your attention sort of diluted by all of the things that are trying to dilute it. So yeah, Deep Work, great one. Rajia, the audience wants to know what you are reading and what you would like them to take a look at.
Okay, so I have a stack of books, and I just realized that I like to read about difficult subjects as well. I not just write about difficult subjects. So here we go. First of all, do go to bookshop.org and order through Taylor Books book front, please. In just on any day, not just today. Like if you like a book, just try that. And alongside with supporting your own local bookstore, of course, independent bookstore. But this is a resource that the community in Charleston really, really, really needs. So help us keep them in business. So this is Exit West by Mohsen Hammett, an amazing writer who writes novels in second person, which to me is really, really interesting, and it's a fascinating read. But this is about the refugee crisis, basically, and it has this weird concept of doors that refugees open and they step through and find themselves somewhere else. So it has kind of a touch of magical realism to it, but just amazing writer in general. Mohsen Hammett's Exit West, or he also wrote, I read everything he wrote. He wrote The Reluctant Fundamentalist before, how to get filthy rich in Rising Asia, I think it was called. Everything he writes, I highly recommend. Old Houses by Hala Alian, about the Palestinian diaspora, basically follows the Palestinian family throughout the years as they live in different countries. Amazingly poetic, because Hala Alian is a writer and a poet and a trained psychiatrist or psychologist, I'm not sure. So amazing characters, amazing language, and just beautiful story. Back to school shootings, The Beauty of Your Face. It is about it's centered around a school shooting that happens in a Muslim school. So but it's also a beautiful coming of age story of the principal of that school. So it goes back and forth in time. Anything in which Danticat writes is brilliant. Okay, anything she writes is brilliant. Haitian American writer, beautiful short stories, the most perfect, beautiful short stories you will ever read, I think. Everything Inside is, I think, her latest collection. And finally, one more, Girl, Woman, Other. I think it won the Booker Prize in 2019, and it's just, again, stylistically very distinguished, but it's also filled with beautiful, very well realized characters and very interesting exploration of gender, and who a woman is, and so on. So it's just a beautiful book as well. So any one of these or anything else that you hear about that is interesting, please go to Tiller Books on bookshop.org and order there.
Absolutely. Fabulous recommendations. Dan, over 98 episodes, we've gotten into the habit of going to the bookseller for the last question. And we usually ask the same last question, and it is a fill in the blank. And it is this. Being successful as an independent bookseller is part luck, part hard work, and part what else?
The hard luck, hard work, and hard
It's a pop
yeah, I'm not a quick thinker, Joe.
Oh no.
What is it? Part compromise?
No, I mean that's fair. Flexibility would be a good one.
Yeah. It's a lot of things. And who knows if, I don't even know if I'm successful. We're open. We have, I don't know, Joe. I don't know.
Successful. I have to say, it seems pretty successful. It seems like an amazing institution and an amazing space. And I would love.
Thank you.
I would love. Love to be there in person.
I would love for everyone to come. And Raj's daughter is a recent new employee as of the last.
Loves it there. She loves it.
That's fabulous. Oh, that's so cool. That is so cool. It has been such a complete pleasure talking to the two of you. Thank you both so much for taking the time to join us today. Dan, the store, as I said, just seems completely amazing. Taylor Books.
Thank you for
Please head to the site.
inviting me.
Absolutely. Raja, congratulations on the reception for these 2 books that you've put out into the world. They're fabulous. So happy to hear about the 3rd forthcoming, and best of luck with that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
To the audience, thank you for being here with us again. Come back next week, same time, same place, for our 99th episode, if you can believe that. Until then, stay well, keep reading.